Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unlock Your Genius call. This is a bit of a spontaneous topic, circadian rhythm. And I want it to be an exploration. I'm going to bring up a few things in the beginning just for having something to start exploring around. I can say that for me, I know that I was from a very early age, I had a mom who had Swedish hours and a dad who had Spanish hours. So my mom wanted to have dinner at 5:30 in the evening. My dad wanting to have dinner maybe by 10 p.m. And I probably were somewhere in the middle, like 8. So everybody would take their kind of evening meal when they wanted to. And my mom was very sad because she wanted to have this family dinner. But I would tell her, we're not a real family anyway. We're just 3 people. And that made it even worse for her. So to my mom's like big kind of sorrow, it was not really easy for us. It was more in the weekend that maybe we could like have late lunches 2:30. And that used to be everybody could come together. So that just makes me know that it's both cultural and personal. My mom is a projector, emotion projector. My dad was a manifesting generator, and I'm a generator. We had different rhythms. My mom would feel so exhausted by 10 p.m. and she would like beg me to go to bed. But I was an only child, and I felt the house was so empty when she was not up. So I would not allow her to go to bed. And she would sometimes be in despair, like, please, I'm going to break. That was my mom used to say, just let me go to sleep. And now when I think about it, I feel really sad because I can see it came from a deep place of that, kind of that 3955 channel. And now also the fascination of the difference. I know as well that from I was 18, I worked first in a sports bar that was open to 3, then in a nightclub that was open to 5. I ran that nightclub for 4 years. So my way of living my life being up very late and then still having to get up in the morning. But there's just something with that getting a rush of energy in the evening. And I think that that's also connected to when our adrenals aren't really happy. We can feel calm when we drink coffee, and we can get a rush of energy by 10 p.m. So that's something to consider. It's not always just a healthy rhythm. It can also be an unhealthy kind of symptom. So I want to bring this up with this kind of personal introduction. This is a chart that I love and that I've been looking at many times. So it comes, of course, from Chinese medicine, and it looks at the 24 hours we have every day in 2-hour blocks. It's connecting it to the 5 elements. So you have fire twice, but there are 5 elements, and then our meridian system. And I would say, I don't know. Is this the perfect hours for us? Here you have a little bit more explained. So, is it ideal to go and sleep between 11 and 1 in the morning? Should we wake up and be active 5 to 7 in the morning? And, like, how is this? So according to this, we are waking up 5 to 7, having breakfast 7 to 9, work and be active 9 to 11, lunch and socialize in the heart meridian from 11 to 1, and then from 1 to 3, solve problems and get organized, 3 to 5, work, study, and drink tea and water, from 5 to 7, eat dinner, restore your energy, from 7 to 9 in the evening, socialize, flirt, and have sex. And then from 9 to 11, chill out, relax, and read. And then, like we said, go to bed 11 to 1, deep sleep from 1 to 3, and sleep soundly from 3 to 5. So that's the Chinese body clock. And then the question is too, the way that our society is organized, maybe, for some of us, this is possible, but depending on what kind of work we have and what kind of life we have and who is in our family, maybe this is a little bit harder as well. So is there anything else? Yeah, this is just similar with some of the other things, like the emotions, the grief for the lung and large intestine, the worry for the stomach and spleen, the joy for the heart and small intestine, the fear for the kidney and bladder, and the anger for the liver and gallbladder. So maybe if we are completely off in some of those hours of the day, could that lead to this emotion? You know, who knows? And it's kind of in that sense, the wheel of the 24 hours is like a microcosm, maybe even of the year. When you see here the seasons, so we have like cycles within cycles within cycles, right? And because this is a call that is sponsored or powered by Purium, just to say that the product today that would help to support sleep is this tart cherry that you take 30 minutes before you go to sleep, and it supports the naturally supports the levels of melatonin that helps us to change from being awake to being asleep. So that is my little introduction to today. And maybe as a first step, like when you see this rhythm, do you feel like, oh, I'm in sync with that, or I'm completely out of sync? I wish I was in sync, or I'm completely out of sync because I'm a different kind of animal. That doesn't work for me. That's kind of my first curiosity for those of you that are here. And have you seen that clock before? Is that something that you've looked at, or is it completely new?
I've seen versions of that, but even since we were little, we'd have family dinners at 4 or 5 o'clock. But we have an entrepreneur family, so we never worked together like you, Bella. It was late. We'd eat late, and everyone would eat at their own times, and the food would be ready or warm. You just eat and go. That's how it's always been. And then myself, entrepreneur, kind of in the same business as you, bar, restaurant. I would eat when I get a chance, when I had a chance. Yeah, so it would be around the afternoon, and then late at night, I'd be up till 2, 3 in the morning, or I'd be open till that time, and then go home or eat a snack, and then go to bed, and then wake up at 5 in the morning. So that doesn't apply to me, that circle or whatever. I'm totally off. So yeah, I guess it depends on what you're trying to do too, if you're trying to build things or if you're working a 9 to 5. And then so yeah,
I think though that you have kind of switched back to going to bed earlier. If I understand, like it hasn't been hard for you to be like, okay, if I don't work with that, I'm not going to stay up all night. Because for me, I actually love to stay up all night, and I have to tell myself, Bella, you have to get up tomorrow at 7. You need to have at least these many hours of sleep, and I have to force myself to bed. But it seems that for you, you have been able to switch back and actually go to bed early. Like, how has it been to kind of come back to more of what works for you and not only what works for your businesses?
it's draining. I feel drained, like going back to the normal times. I guess I'm a chameleon in that sense, where it depends on the environment, or if I'm traveling, or if I'm going to events, then I'll go back to the 3, 4 in the morning. If not, then yeah, I'll do. It depends on who's around. And then here it's like winter and the weather sucks. So yeah, I mean, there's really nothing to do. But in the summertime, we're up later. It's just, I guess, the environment.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is for me, and I guess everyone around me.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nicole, what about you? You have also outer reasons, like unlike your design, to be up at weird hours.
Exactly. I look at my life, because I was introduced to those type of wheels in my teen years. So we're going back to the 80s. So, it's been around, and I grew up with a mum who knew about your dream times and what part of your body was processing when you were sleeping and all that. But it's interesting, at different phases of my life, my rhythms have been incredibly different. If I actually put it into a human design thing, I actually have the 15 as my life's work, and I've got the cross of extremes as my actual incarnation cross. So I actually have been learning that possibly for me, my circadian rhythms do change, and they can be quite extreme. So I will be up, as I was last year, at 3 a.m. for the transit calls quite naturally. I don't set an alarm. I know at this point in my life, I don't have to have that done. But I've been through phases where I've had years where I haven't slept. I had a child that decided sleep was an optional extra until he was about 2 years old. He literally wouldn't sleep more than 2 or 3 hours. And even now, he's only just learning about sleep at 28. So he's really had a lifetime of what is this sleep thing and how does it work? So on the sleep front, I used to naturally be a night owl and I'd be up till about between midnight and 1 o'clock. And I learned that I used to need 8 hours sleep. So if I went to bed at 10 o'clock at night, I'd wake up at 6 o'clock. If I went to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, if my life allowed it. And then when I started going through, I suppose, a awakening process, all that type of stuff, my body has flicked me completely the opposite way. And I now wake up at dawn. It does not matter what time of year it is. It doesn't matter how late I go to bed. My body will wake up with the sun. And it also now wakes up when it's required to. And I don't actually sit there going, I'm going to wake up for the transit call, which is why you sometimes see me and sometimes you don't, because I just trust that if I need to be present for something, no matter what the time zone is, I will be awake for it. So for me, it's been an interesting journey of how my circadian rhythms have changed naturally. And I don't know how much of that is my design and how much of that is actually just different phases of my life, because I'm now in my 50s. So I've been through that university manic being out and having to do everything in my 20s. I've been through the mothering phase where you're up at all hours trying to care for a small child. I've been through having a teenager, all that type of stuff. So I don't know if this is my current. And if you look at your circadian rhythms in the context of a lifetime, and I know it's quite common for people as they get older, they sleep less. They actually will nap during the day, and they actually will go to, it was funny you mentioning your father, Bella, because I know there are cultures like Spain and other cultures where it's quite normal to actually have a nap during the middle of the day and then stay up late. So they actually naturally are living on a different rhythm overall. And that is actually over here, what a lot of older people, it's quite common that they'll basically fit that without realizing they're fitting that. So yeah, I'm not sure about where I think those clocks have a place, but I think it is also tied to maybe the time of where you are in your life as well, and what your work life allows you to do.
Yeah, I just realized, like a curiosity, but what I realized with the organs is that if I start my day bit like by 7, I feel like I'm always more hungry, like in the first half of the day. So when I start my day in the beginning of the stomach thing, I feel like I need to eat. However, in the weekend or the days I can start it like later, which would be the spleen, then I can go and I don't need to eat until like much later. I have like a smoothie a few hours in, and then maybe I have a late lunch. But there's something when I start here, then my stomach just won't snore. Which maybe it has to do with this. I never thought of it, but I just thought it was weird that when I get up earlier, I just feel more hungry super early. Joe.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to pick on what Nicole was saying. One of the things that has changed for me, I grew up in India, and we used to eat later in the day because the men would come home and, the whole family used to sit down and eat. And not too later too, but like by 10:30, everybody would be done eating. Kids would be served first, but then as I aged, I started sitting with the adults. So that's how I grew up. But now as I see, and it's been 20 years I've been in the United States, so most of those rhythms are long gone. By 4:30, I'm done. 4:35, my dinner is done. And it makes sense. Also, like my sleep, to what Nicole was saying, like the phase in life or how life transforms or changes. I have been a chronic insomniac all my life, ever since I remember, be it because of education, be it because of work, be it because of bad marriage or whatever other reasons. But the moment I walked away from my marriage, that day was the first day I ever slept 5.5 hours in my life. And ever since, out now, and even as I age, I'm sleeping more and more. I used to have meditation before. I still have meditation now. Like that has not shifted as much. I mean, experiences have shifted and all of that. So I am really curious when you showed me that clock, Bella, like, especially the last point you made, like if I eat something between 7 and 9, I am definitely ready for my lunch, like around 11:30, 12. But if I have my coffee, say coffee at around 10:30, 11, then I'm not hungry until like 4 o'clock. And that I would eat and I'm done. Like I don't have to have that. And it's not even regulated. Like one day I could experience that and one day I could experience this. It's not a routine. And I still wake up around between 2:15 now, 2:15 and 4, and then go back to sleep. That still is happening. However, with the whole program, because I'm getting so tired because of the energy and all the work that has been happening to me, with me, by me, for me, like I think my body itself is getting tired in ways, mentally, physically, emotionally. So some days I have skipped waking up in the morning, which I'm totally fine. So Nicole, like you, like I don't need an alarm clock. Like if I know I have a call at 6, I'm waking up at 5:30, period. No alarm needed. Like my body knows. It's like aware even in deep sleep. So those have been like still, like I'm actually really curious if there is a like based on the human design or whatever, like there are rhythms that are supposed to work for you or experiment with you. Like I'm really curious about that. Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, I haven't heard about that, but I would say again, going to variables where some of us are more passive and some of us are more active, whether that's digestion or environment, that could possibly play in. Yeah, and I know as a generator also, or a manifesting generator, it feels good to be tired when you go to sleep. There's almost something frustrating of going to bed when you're not tired. Like sometimes I make a mistake and like I drink something that has caffeine. And when I used to not be so sensitive because I guess I used to have very stressed out adrenals. So I could actually have, when I lived in Italy, I could have a little, like an espresso because that's what we do after dinner and it would never affect me. But now that I'm more sensitive, if I end up drinking some caffeine, then yeah, it's that frustrating feeling of like, I'm awake. And usually as a pure generator, also because I don't have the emotional center defined, because that can be for people with emotional centers, especially if they have periods with more turmoil, they can have like periods where it's harder to sleep. When you have an open emotional center and you have understood kind of how your emotional center works, the open center, I would say 97% or 98% of nights, it takes me like less than a minute to fall asleep. It's kind of interesting. And my mom, like I said before, is an emotional projector. For her, it's just so funny how me and my dad, we would just like lay down and then sleep in 1 second. So yeah, just that thing. It's different. It's a little bit different with sleep, especially with depending on our aura type and our inner authority. But I would love to hear from other people too, with what Joe was saying in your experiences. So Gary and then Jen. Or sorry, is it Jerry?
It's Jerry.
It's Jerry. Sorry.
It is Jerry. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I confess I didn't hear everything, Joe, that you said, because the way that I work, I was like, all right, I have to look to see about the question, is this applicable to all people? And then I just started reading about, like that clock, but then like in other systems that just expanded out in China, because in Chinese medicine, I'm like, everybody's different, right? Like it doesn't apply to everybody all the same. So then I was seeing, in seasons, like there is actually a system which says like the hour at which different elements, which different organs are affected, is affected by the time of year. So I'm just going to throw that in there that, hey, that's useful. And it's not fixed, which makes sense to me. because in the seasons where the days are longer, partly as a craftsperson, I just like when in the field more people are sleeping. Also, just as an intuitive, it's just quiet, like it just feels quieter. So I thrive in the nighttime. Times when I force myself to get up and do like the sunrise, greet the sun, like I never feel good. I'm always exhausted. So yeah, I'll just give the reflection that I do try to honor and create times of rest. And I do understand that like there are certain times that our organs only, like I would stay up all night a lot, and understand that organs don't necessarily get replenished without rest at certain times. And at the same time, in the way that the lunar cycle goes through all 64, pulses in 1 month, I feel like we also can then create these like focused areas in which we actually just give the body permission to replenish itself.
Yeah, thank you. Words of wisdom, definitely. Thank you. Jen.
I don't know specifically what I wanted to speak about. I just know that when you said asleep in minutes, that's something that's come into play, especially during this process of letting go, of awakening, of awareness, just living strategy and authority and making decisions by your form instead of your mind. Something about it releases and it allows you to just go when you're ready. You don't have to think while you're in bed anymore. Something in you just kind of clicks, and when you hit the pillow, you're done. But there was a time in my life where that wasn't so, and I would lay in bed for hours and hours and hours. So I definitely think it's something that's clicking in with this whole process that this journey we've been on.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been referred to a couple of times in the call. So for those of you that are not in the whole immersion, that's the part of the hero's journey or the Gene Keys work that we do in Unlock Your Design that has to do with the Venus. So first we have the found immersion, which is a lot with the body, where we do stretches for all these different meridians with Bob Cooley's work and True Body Intelligence work. It's the systems that we're using. And then whole is very much the Venus, but even a little bit deeper into intimacy and some more weaving with astrology as well. And then sovereign would be the last one. But right now we are a group of like 35 people that are in this deep work with the core. And that's the part that we're in from the whole Venus, kind of ends up in the core. And that's where we are. So that's in those embodiment called why some of us come in, and that's just, we are in that call right before, 2 hours before. So that's why it kind of weaves really well with coming in here and allowing the form to continue to speak. So thank you for all of you that are weaving and just kind of coming in and out of spaces. And now I have problems with how I'm supposed to say your name. Is it Sky or is it in another way? Sky? Yeah, okay. Let's see if we can unmute. We can't hear you yet. Maybe I can ask you to unmute. Oh.
There we go. There was no mute button. I don't know, or I couldn't find it. Yeah, I just wanted to speak a little bit like as being a projector and playing with like bedtime, I guess, right? Like I have this, like, I know I sleep better when I go to bed before I'm tired. It does happen. But there's this like struggle, I guess, because at night everyone's asleep and I can be in my own aura, right? And like think my own thoughts. And I'm a mother, right? And I have an infant. Well, he's 1.5 years. So there's still that going on to disrupt that rhythm. But the more that I can like honor that it does make me feel like more grounded, I guess. It's weird though. It's like that's a big conditioning from when I was younger though. Like I've always been the only projector in my family. So as a child growing up, I was well, my dad was a projector, but my parents didn't stay together for very long. So generators, manifesting generators all around me all the time, and it's exhausting. And so I got in this habit of staying up at night and just being with myself, right? And like that struggle of trying to come away from that, because when I do go to bed at the right time, it's so much better. Like it's just like I can wake up refreshed. I don't usually, I've had a long 25 years of trouble sleeping. So I'm really like trying to like fine tune this. Yeah. And then I also wanted to speak about eating too, the eating rhythm, right? Like I've spent the last 5 years in sort of this detox journey, like a purification of the body. And within that, what's come out as a natural rhythm for eating for me, right? Which is, when I wake up, it's not to eat, it's to consume liquids. And I consume liquids until about 2 to 4, depending on the day, right? And then that like one solid meal a day really works well for me, which is interesting, I guess. Like, and like I'm a consecutive appetite, which, as a child, that just brings up like nothing could touch on my plate, which I got in a lot of shit about, right? Like, why are you eating one by one, right? But sorry, my daughter's in here now and crying, so I'm just gonna cut it off now. Okay. Thanks.
Oh, poor little girl. Well, thank you. And so valuable with the projector perspective, because sometimes we're so like overpowering or loud in a way energetically as the other aura types. And then you with the open sacral, it just takes everything in. And makes me understand my mom a little bit and have also that kind of compassion that I didn't have when I was a child.
Totally. I feel that like, oh my God, I want to be the first to bed, but I'm always the last to bed. Always. Because I can't sleep until everyone's sleeping. Why? Like, what is that about? The mothering thing? Or that's that like...
But even just like super primitive, the motor, the engine is the sacral center. And as long as there is sacral activity, it's kind of filtering through you. Even if you're not the sponge, even if you're just the filter, it's still a kind of like an activity that happens through the life force. So that's in a way just that simple. And when the life force starts, most people when they sleep, they're projectors or even reflectors. So when people sleep, a lot of that just goes out, and then suddenly you are in your own aura, you're in your own energy, and you can sleep without feeling, overwhelmed with what's going on around you.
Mm-hmm. I really want to try sleeping in my own aura.
Space around you when you sleep, or like do you sleep?
Sorry?
Do you sleep alone, or do you sleep with? No, you don't.
I sleep with 2 other people generally, my husband and my baby. So we're transferring him the baby. They're both manifesting generators. So my girls are both generators. So the baby's getting in his own space. The nights I sleep the best is when my husband goes in to sleep with the baby, because we're trying to night wean. And I am just like, oh my God. And so I suggested it the other day. I'm like, I just want to try sleeping by myself. But the disruption that causes in a marriage, it's hard. Like, I don't know, is there any other projectors that can speak to that, like that experience? Like, that's hard on the relationship. It's hard on my husband. Sometimes the only time we are together is when we're sleeping. So it's like, how do you feel that connection, I guess?
I mean, I know for like, again, like what you say is real. And even because many of us are predictors when we sleep. So for me, I hope that by having 2 queen size beds in the same room, because I made this room my office when I moved here, I was going to be able to at least sleep like 2 meters apart. But then, like you say, it's kind of that expectation of not sleeping in another bed. But I felt like that was close enough and that could be accepted. But yeah, I guess that there it is to say, you know, if you for you, I think for predictors, what I've heard is that in the weekend, for example, when there are both are home, then maybe you get to sleep in, or, you know, some of the days you get to go to bed earlier if you can, like finding those things that are kind of nobody can touch. And that's already agreed upon. And that seems like then the predictor knows, okay, I have that. Like my mom said, no, I'm going to break. Like if she knew that she had Sunday mornings or this and that, and she didn't have the kids and she just had her own aura, then that would help her to at least, you know, feel that she got the basics of what she needed.
Yeah, actually, you brought something up. Like, my husband goes to bed pretty early because he's always up at like 5. But that's what we've naturally shifted to. So I take the night shift, which, yeah. So I'm up until midnight or 12:30 to nurse. But then he gets up, like he's had 3 weeks off. So he's up with the baby at 6, and then I'm in bed till 9:30 or 10. And that like couple hours is glorious. The morning, and that is what like sustains me. And I'm like, you know, I can be even keeled. Yeah, so that's brilliant.
Oh, I found it.
Hi, Deborah. You
Hi.
found your unmute button? Yay.
No, I found the unmute button before. I couldn't find the hand button. That's why I was waving before.
Okay, here you are.
Oh, good Lord. So funny. Me and technology. I keep learning. I was wanting to talk about being a manifester and not knowing it until 5 years ago. So, and I'm hearing all of you speaking to how the times of your lives and the various things you're doing play into shaping your rhythms. And as a manifester who from age 21 was always sleeping with other people, I never knew how wonderful it was to have my own bed and my own space and kind of lay down and dissipate whatever was hanging on to me and then be able to sleep peacefully. I never knew what that was like until, well, basically I moved out of the bed I was sharing with my husband at the time. And it was as that relationship was ending anyway. So turned out to be beautiful. But yeah, the aura type really does seem to be a factor in this. And also, of course, the period of life. After I fell down the stairs not 2 years ago, in the year before last. Not too good with time. And I was unconscious for a while and really feeling bad throughout the recovery time. But I committed myself at a certain point during that recovery to allowing myself all of the time and space I needed to heal completely on all levels. And one of the things that I did was release myself from any need to adhere to any kind of rhythm that wasn't for my health, that wasn't what I felt I needed. And that has been an interesting experiment now for a year and a half. And I find that in general, the clock that you showed, Bella, fits me fairly well. That and the whole 30 diet plan that I experimented with starting last year, and coordinating how I feel I know I need to sleep, and how I now understand my body being reset, needs to eat, I am feeling better and better as time goes on. But I'm completely devoted to my own health now and letting all the rhythms just come as they will. And it's magical. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Yeah. You only have one body, right? And I think for me, that's part of why we're meeting here on Tuesdays, because it's important. It's important to listen to this, because once it's gone, it's gone. You know, like once it doesn't serve, like once it can't keep up with us anymore, then, you know, sometimes the gap becomes too big, and we want to care about it. And you're role modeling that Deborah, in a way, you know, and that's cool.
In fact, I actually am consciously within my family system, and I'm noticing the changes in the people around me as my energy is impacting them, which is wonderful.
There's one other thing in that chart that I was thinking about with sleep and emotions. And of course, like Jerry was saying, this is absolutely a simplification. It's not completely correct, but I thought it was interesting if we look from 11 p.m. in the evening, and then we look until about 8, 9 in the morning when most people kind of start their day, and we see the emotions that are connected to the meridian system: anger, grief, and worry. And I wonder, you know, when we don't sleep and we don't have those parts, those meridians that can regenerate the way that they are supposed to, I wonder, you know, how that has to do with how we can handle and process and transcend or get out the anger, the grief, and the worry. Because in the day, what we see, we have joy and we have fear. Like, it's kind of very different if we look like that half, more like the night half and the day half. I never thought of that, and I think it's kind of interesting to notice. Yeah, Nicole.
I think that's an interesting observation. And given what my physical body's been through the last 3 years regarding literal organs, it's interesting to see where the grief and the anger are. But some of the body work I've been doing for my liver, it's actually not anger, it's grief. And we think it's because it's lost the kidney that literally lived next door to it. So, because I wasn't born with only one kidney. So I find it fascinating that the anger, sometimes I think that the body changes what its roles are regarding the sleep patterns. And I think when people, like I'm thinking of Sky going through the crazy baby toddler time where the sleep is naturally a bit skewed because you're trying to train someone who is living very much by their needs, but not by the way society works, that, you know, you're meant to sleep now and you're meant to be awake now, when they are still physically growing. That the emotional state, because at the moment I'm waking up at literally 2:34 a.m. every morning, and it's just a very tiny wake up, and then I go back to sleep. It's literally like a couple of minutes, and I've been curious as to what that is. But I also know right now we've got massive solar flares happening from the sun, like they're X-class solar flares. So if you are sensitive to the electromagnetics and the frequencies of the earth as they wash through, I do think that sometimes that is what actually is waking us. It's just a response to the energies literally of the planet, not just the people around us, but the planet. And that we're just sort of acknowledging it. And then we sort of flip back, for me, because my 2:34 is obviously, my PM is your daytime. So depending on where you are, depends on what part of the body, if you are following those clocks. So when you've got interactions like we now have on Zoom, or like we have now where we've got people from all over the world, we're all in different organ points of the day. We're no longer actually working as a synced group, we've now got people in all different areas. So I think with those clocks, it's an interesting point to have in the mix of it all. Thank you.
Yeah, and I wonder, I used to be a consultant and I used to travel. If it wasn't every week, it was at least every other week. And it would be sometimes to Shanghai and sometimes to Brazil. And it would be like all kinds of ways around the globe. And both with the pressure to just go up and down. Like sometimes you have like a bottle or something, you come down and the bottle is like, you're like, is this what happened to my body? And then, of course, also you don't have the time to adjust to one time zone until you're flying back or flying past that. And Nicole, you were also saying when you came on the call that you have a cold, and that's partly also because of airports and traveling and all that. So yeah. So I would love to hear from you, Jen, and then Jenny. Before we end, if you have anything after Jen, I would love to hear from you as well. Oh, you're muted still.
I don't know why it keeps happening. I keep getting inspiration and then it goes away. So I never even get the full thought out. And I only get out a few words. It's silly. So I'm just going to cut it and go.
Oh, no. Well, if it comes back after Jenny, let it come back.
Yeah, I've been thinking about my rhythm. I think I've always been a really good sleeper. I can sleep well, which is good. I've never struggled with insomnia. It's easier for me when I've got some kind of structure because I'm a reflector. So if I've got something that's planned for me already, it's quite easy for me to fit into it. It's when I'm left to my own devices of my own putting my own creativity in structure into a day, that's when I can get a bit lost, because I think it's because I'm a reflector. I think it's because I'm not being defined by something. So that's something I'm trying to pull apart. Like how can I strengthen that? But sleeping, yeah, I sleep alone. That just keeps me healthy. I sleep away from everybody. Yeah, and I used to be sad about it, but now I'm not. Now I just appreciate my health and I just appreciate that alone time I need. Yeah. That's what I'd like to contribute.
And can you just say maybe how you had the courage, or did something happen you didn't feel well, like when you made that decision, or wasn't it a decision? Like how was it that you got from sleeping together to sleeping alone? Like how was that process?
It was my intuition. I had, I had a pattern of, having partners. I had a partner and then I had another partner, and then my intuition was telling me I was really quite codependent actually, and my intuition was telling me like in the future you're going to be single and you're going to be on your own and you're going to love it. And I was like, no, I'm not. And I really, for years, I like, no. And I threw all my toys out the pram. I was like, I really fought against this idea of being alone and single. So it wasn't easy. And it's something that's taken, it's been teased out of me for a long time. But now I'm here and I'm like, oh yeah, it's all right. I'm okay. And I know it's for the greater good, for my greater good and for what's possible. So it wasn't easy. It's been a process of, it was my intuition telling me that it was best for me. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you as well. Another role model of like trusting intuition and going with it. And then kind of now you're taking the fruits of that choice and that trust. Jen, is anything popping? Maybe something else?
Lot is popping, but nothing like solid that I can throw out like a cohesive thought.
That's cool. It's just cool that you're here and popping when it pops. Okay, well, I had a beautiful almost an hour here. It just felt kind of I mean, it felt intimate, even if we are on Zoom. And like I wrote in the chat, 9 people, and we have all the aura types and just a lot of valuable input where I feel like I'm understanding more about, you know, how it is to be human in this world and how it is to interact with others that have different aura types and different habits and different pasts and different, you know, needs. So yeah, it was very valuable. And I don't have a set like schedule with themes. I know that we had said we were going to speak about water, so I might bring that in the next few weeks, but also just let me know, because we are kind of the same people showing up. So if there are things that you want to speak about, just write to me. I'm super, super behind everywhere though. So right now, if you write to me, it probably will take a while for me to respond, but just so you know, I'm open for input of what we can speak about, because, and maybe it's not even so important where we start, because we are going to get where we're supposed to get anyway, but just know this is a co-creation and a co-exploration. So, oh yeah, and that, who was that? Somebody told me about, well, I think it was Anna, because we used to do with conscious connection, we used to do like open calls on intimacy and like more that kind of kundalini. And yeah, who knows, when we're ending whole, which has more to do with intimacy, maybe we do something also that has to do with that aspect of health, which for me, I mean, I think that's super important too. So yeah, feel free to suggest then, and then we continue the exploration, including the body and the life force and all we are. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.